Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And I know a lot of things have happened over the last month. We've gotten a PlayStation State of Play, there was an Xbox Bethesda showcase. Jeff Keighley, well, he did his own thing. I'm not sure how successful that was, but he did do his own thing. Then Capcom and Square Enix, they came out with their own events as well, and I think it's really just been a great time overall for a large portion of gamers, except for Nintendo gamers. Unfortunately, Nintendo fans right now, they're just kind of chilling out, waiting around for Nintendo to announce their own June Nintendo Direct. And well, technically, they did just announce their own Direct, and it's actually happening this week. Yeah, that's right, though fans aren't exactly thrilled, and I'll kind of explain why here in just a bit. Also, an ambitious Halo Infinite leak made its way online, and this could possibly change everything. So we'll talk about that as well. To start this video off though, we're going to talk about a new Metroidvania game that's set to release next year in 2023 for the Nintendo Switch and PC, that being Bo Path of the Till Lotus. Now, this was actually a Kickstarter game that's inspired by various games, including Hollow Knight. It was inspired by Okami, Paper Mario, Celeste, among others as well. Yeah, that's a lot of beloved games, though. I think from the gameplay that we've seen so far, it's rather clear that the two main inspirations here that'll immediately stick out are Hollow Knight and then Okami. Its combat looks very similar to something like you would see from Hollow Knight, and then it has that beautiful Japanese-like art style that you would see in Okami. The combination really looks absolutely fantastic, and it's a beautiful looking game, but the reason that Bo Path of the Till Lotus is making the rounds right now actually comes down to the team that's working on this game. It's now being reported that some of the another Metroid 2 remake, aka AM2R team, are reuniting to work on this game. Now, the thing about AM2R is that it's probably one of the most praised fan-made projects out there that I can remember, as it was a very good remake of Metroid 2, especially considering that, again, this was a fan-made project. You could easily tell that this was a very passionate and talented team, if anything. Unfortunately, though, as some of you all might remember, AM2R was kind of short-lived as, well, Nintendo, they were very aggressive with DMCA takedowns as they were working on their own remake at the time being, of course, Samus Returns for the 3DS. But all in all, AM2R, I mean, it was still very well done to the point that some fans, they did actually prefer it over Samus Returns. So again, they did do a good job with that game, and to see them reunite here to work on another Metroidvania game, I think that that's certainly very exciting. I mean, sure, Bo is a different game and everything. It's actually more similar to something like Hollow Knight than it is to something like Metroid, but now we're going to kind of see them get their chance at working on their own original IP. So we'll see how this game turns out, but I definitely think that it looks quite promising, and again, it will release on the Nintendo Switch and PC sometime in 2023. Now, we also got an update on Skull and Bones, as it looks like Ubisoft might finally be releasing this game sometime here soon. I mean, this is a game that's been delayed and rebooted several times, but a few ratings have been spotted here recently. The first of which was actually last month over in South Korea, but now another rating has popped up over in Brazil. Now, one thing that we've seen a lot here in recent years is that when these ratings they start popping up, it does seem like more often than not, an official announcement follows sometime shortly thereafter. That could be a few days, that could be a few weeks, or even months at times, but regardless of the time frame that we're talking about here, this is certainly a good sign for a game that has had a turbulent development cycle, to say the least. Now, one interesting thing about this rating, though, is that both the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 are not mentioned in these ratings. Right now, it is starting to appear that Skull and Bones is looking to release on the Xbox Series, the PlayStation 5, PC, and then also Google Stadia as well. Yeah, Stadia, I mean, that still actually does exist and everything, but this does appear to be another game moving beyond last generation consoles, which is something that's increasingly becoming more and more common as of recent. Now, actually speaking of Google Stadia a moment ago, a new report by Axios unveiled that before Google scaled back their operations of Stadia and shut down their studios, they were actually involved with the creation of two notable games that we've seen over the last month, one being Quarry, developed by Supermassive Games, which just released and has been well received for that matter, and then High on Life, which is set to release on Xbox and Xbox Game Pass later this year in October. Now, we've seen a lot of games over the last month, though High on Life specifically has really caught my attention as I think that it looks hilarious. I love the art style, and it is being developed by Squanch Games and the co-creator of Rick and Morty, Justin Roiland. It is rather interesting, though, that Google Stadia was involved with the creation of 2 good-looking games here, one of which has already been well-received, again being Quarry, and then the other one, which looks highly promising, being High on Life. And all this just kind of makes the misstep of Google Stadia look even worse, in my opinion. It really just feels like Google, they didn't understand the hardcore game market at all. Maybe they thought they were going to have a much more immediate impact, when that was always really highly unlikely. For one, even though game streaming from the cloud has improved a lot in recent years, and it does have a lot of potential going forward, it's still not going to be the go-to for most hardcore gamers, especially in today's landscape. But also, games, they're expensive to make, and they do take a long time to make. I think that once Google started to figure all this out, that it was going to be difficult, they just kind of bailed out. Unfortunately, and as terrible as what it was, some studios got completely screwed, as we saw with Typhoon Studios, which was the studio behind Journeys to the Savage Planet. I mean, they acquired them and then they shut them down within like a year. It was just absolutely ridiculous, but it is nice to see some of these other games, such as High on Life and then Quarry, kind of bounce back and, find new partners. In fact, I believe that both of these games aren't actually releasing on Stadia, or at least at launch, which again, really just kind of highlights Google's mistakes here. I think if anything, Google just kind of highlighted why maybe some gamers are apprehensive on these big corporations entering the hardcore game market. Let's go and talk about Nintendo, though, because there's been a lot of rumors and a lot of speculation of a Nintendo Direct sometime this June. I mean, we've had leaks, we've had rumors, there's been speculation based on embargoes, and we've really just heard it all. Except from Nintendo themselves, as they've been very hush-hush up to this point, or at least until today. Well, kind of. So here's the thing. Technically, Nintendo, they just announced a new Nintendo Direct for this June, even this week in fact. The thing is that this is not necessarily the big Direct that everybody was hoping for. This is actually instead a Xenoblade 3 Direct set for June 22nd and quite long at 20 minutes. That does seem quite long for just Xenoblade 3 alone, considering we've already seen quite a bit on this game. I guess we'll probably just go more in depth into it and reveal some of how its combat works and things like that. And I mean, if you are a big Xenoblade fan, this is still something very much to look forward to. I myself do like Xenoblade, and I think Xenoblade 3 looks excellent. Though I think that the problem here just kind of comes down to the timing of this announcement, as it is causing some fans out there to maybe jump to conclusions that this automatically means that they won't have that big general Direct as many fans were hoping for. Now, is that what that actually means, though? No, not necessarily. I think at the end of the day, I mean, the thing about Nintendo is Nintendo, they're going to Nintendo. They're going to do things at their own pace. And even though the timing of this might throw some fans off, I think that it is important to point out that even though Nintendo has plans to have a Xenoblade Direct, as we're seeing here, that doesn't necessarily mean that Nintendo doesn't have a bigger Direct planned for sometime soon. Maybe even next week, as is rumored currently. And actually, about that, I do come bearing good news today, as the very leaky Jeff Grubb posted on Twitter that this Xenoblade 3 Direct fits with what he had heard about Nintendo doing their own summer showcases in bits and pieces, and that he still expects more news later this month. He even went so far as to clarify that he does not believe that this is the rumored big Direct at the end of June. So again, I think that everybody needs to just kind of be patient here. The Xenoblade 3 Direct really doesn't necessarily rule anything out per se. Nothing's necessarily confirmed just yet either. I mean, you can say that, but Jeff Grubb, he is a pretty reliable insider, so if anything, you can kind of hold on to that hope for the time being of a general June Nintendo Direct. I am kind of curious, though, as to exactly what he meant by Nintendo breaking up their summer showcases into bits and pieces. That could mean that they're planning to do what they're doing with Xenoblade 3 with some of their other upcoming games, such as Splatoon 3. That one would make a lot of sense. Maybe Bayonetta 3. We haven't heard about that one for quite some time. And maybe even Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. Yeah, that's probably just wishful thinking and everything, but let me know what you all think about all of this. Do you still believe that Nintendo has a general Direct plan for June or not? Let me know in the comments below. Moving on, though, a very ambitious Halo Infinite leak made its way online regarding its Forge mode that could possibly change absolutely everything. We'll kind of get back to that here in just a moment, but some leaked footage of Forge mode and some of its features made its way online. Now, we have seen some leaked footage already in the past of Forge, and even back then, it looked way more ambitious than past iterations of Forge mode. It does appear to be a major step forward in the ability of creating your own unique levels, game modes, or in this situation, the ability to create your own weapons as well. Now, I'm not going to include leaked footage on my channel or anything like that, though it's quite easily found by this point if you are curious, but it did unveil that you can combine weapons in the new Forge mode. That means that if you wanted to combine a skewer with a battle rifle to make an ultra-powerful battle rifle, well, then you can absolutely do that. You can also be a little bit more creative, though, and basically create a gravity gun akin to Half-Life out of the Sentinel beam. You also, though, have the ability of creating your own scripts, and now you're starting to see just how truly creative that you can be with this new Forge mode. You're starting to see why it might be taking them just a little bit longer to get this out the door, because it does sound highly ambitious, it looks highly ambitious, and it has a ton of features that could really unlock the creative potential within the Halo community. And that right there is exactly why this is just so important. The thing about Halo Infinite is that this is a great game. You know, its single player is great as a standalone game. I thought the story was really good, the gameplay was a lot of fun, and then there's the competitive multiplayer. It feels absolutely fantastic, and debatably, the best Halo has felt under 343 Industries. However, its problem though, and this has been a big problem the longer it's been on the market, is that it's low on content. There's just not quite enough content in its competitive multiplayer to keep fans engaged for long periods of time. And the thing about 343 is that they've been slow getting that content out the door. I mean, this is a live service game, so you want that content to be quite frequent, and 343 has really struggled with that so far. Well, that's kind of where Forge mode comes in, because when this does eventually release, then fans will kind of be able to create their own content that they want themselves, which is something that the Halo community has always been really good at. In fact, back in the Halo 3 days, I mean, fans were having a lot of fun with this, creating their own game modes. I mean, people were doing dodgeball, there was zombie mode, there was hide and seek, there was all kinds of fun things. And with even more control, like we're seeing here with this new Forge mode in Halo Infinite, I mean, there's a lot of potential here. And what 343 could do is make some of the popular fan-made content and push them into main parts of the game. We've actually seen Halo do things like that in the past, and it could happen here once again. I think that this really could change everything for Halo Infinite with its endless amount of possibilities. The only issue, though, is that currently it's being planned for Season 3. So we're still a little ways out, as these seasons have been a little longer than what some fans might expect, but I think that from what we've seen so far, that wait will definitely be well worth it. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, have you been satisfied with this year's Summer Game Fest and the June showcases so far? And as you can see here, most of you all said somewhat, but not entirely at 48%. Then 26% of you said yes, while 22% of you said no. So it seems like most of you all haven't necessarily been blown away per se, but a lot of you all have at least enjoyed some of what you've seen so far. And that's perfectly reasonable. Not every showcase has been a resounding hit. I think the PlayStation State of Play at the beginning of June, that was a strong showcase with its third-party presence. I think the Xbox Bethesda showcase, I thought that was really strong. I liked a lot of what they had there. I think Capcom, they had a really good month, finally revealing Dragon's Dogma 2. They revealed Resident Evil 4 Remake, and they also revealed Street Fighter 6. And then Square Enix, they showed that they do have some big plans for Final Fantasy. So I genuinely think that there was a lot of really exciting games shown over the last few weeks. I know that I'm certainly satisfied with most of what we've seen so far. I think the only genuinely disappointing showcase for me was Jeff Keighley's showcase. I thought that was just bad, honestly, but overall, I think that it was a good month, and it felt like E3, which is exactly what I was hoping for. Let me know, though, because I do have one last question. What was your favorite announcement made this month, or at least so far? Because, again, I mean, there's still a chance out there that maybe we could see another Nintendo Direct and possibly even a new PlayStation State of Play. June's still not quite over, but yes, let me know in the comments below on what your favorite announcement was for this month so far. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.